December 19th, Skirgomer. The doors didn't stop slamming that day. Well, that's not exactly true. As I lay in my bed, my own door braced with a chair, I would feel my tired eyes try to slip shut. My brain would beg for sleep. My body would try to oblige, but the second my soft snores would begin, the door to my room would slam shut and I would wake up. I repeated this process throughout the day, nearly sleeping only to be jerked violently awake again. Coupled with my lack of sleep from the last few days, it started to take a toll. It didn't seem to matter what I did to the door either. I tried locking the door, but it seemed the mechanism held no power here. I would bounce awake, trying to throw it open to see who was on the other side, only to find it locked again. I tried tying a bedsheet around it, securing the other end to my desk, but the door would always slam, and I always found the sheet untied. I tried the chair, tried tying the sheet to the chair. Hell, I even tried throwing the mattress off the bed over the door, deciding to sleep in a beanbag on the floor. No matter what I tried, the door still slammed, and I still woke up. The only other time it stopped was when Ulf came to call around mid-morning. I was getting tea in the kitchen, hoping that a cup of chamomile would put me to sleep, when I heard a soft knock on the front door. I nearly dropped the teapot as I charged towards it, Grendel running scared as he tried to get out of my way. I didn't know what prank this was, but I was mad enough to throw caution to the wind and play into this trap. I was mad, I was hurt, and I was exhausted. If they were going to play childish pranks now, then I was going to punt this little asshole down the road until his head smashed on the sidewalk. Ulf backed away a step when I threw the door open, my face likely looking crazed. "Geez, Da said you were looking rough, but I didn't know what to expect. Did you get any sleep last night?" I threw the door open and indicated the rest of the house. "Who can sleep? These little bastards won't stop slamming doors. All the doors. All night." Ulf popped his head in and looked around, clearly concerned. "I don't hear anything," he finally said, after listening for a few minutes, and I snarled at little creatures who were likely laughing at me as we spoke. "You seem tired, Frady. Maybe it's time to make peace with the wee folk. I know they beat you up pretty bad the other night, but it's best not to be on the wrong side of Fae. Just make your offering and put this all—" "Have you come to help me or not?" I asked curtly, not wanting to hear this after the night I'd had. "I'm trying to, but you're making it very difficult. I don't know how the Fae work in your land, but out here they tend to be a little less understanding of slights. Unless you're prepared to hunker down with me and help me fight them off, I don't think I need any help." Ulf blew out a breath and shook his head. "I'll let you rest. Maybe tomorrow you'll be in a better mood." With that, he left. The second I closed the door, I heard one slam shut somewhere in the house. It went on like that all day. The doors slammed repeatedly, but never in the place where I was. As I came stumbling awake, whether I was in my bed or on the couch or on my feet like some cow in the field, silence would stretch just long enough for me to doze off again. Then it would start, and I would be brought awake again. Davin had gotten more sleep than me, but I could tell that he too was starting to feel it. Grendel seemed in a constant state of ears laid back, and we were all tired of being cooped up in the bedroom. I'd brought them food, not wanting either of them to go out into the house, and I'd guarded the bathroom door when David needed to use it. I'd become very paranoid about Davin's safety, especially after the comment by the other hands. As he emptied his bladder, Davin made one more attempt at sanity. "Why don't you just apologize to the lads?" I'd been dozing when I shook awake and asked what he'd said. I said, "Why don't you just apologize to the lads? They're wrong, but we don't seem to be able to beat them. Why not just admit we did something that we shouldn't have and make this stop?" I sighed. Not him, too. "I can't just apologize to them. They're wrecking my house. They hurt Grendel. They hurt you. I can't just say sorry and pretend that none of this ever happened." Davin flushed the commode and walked out, looking at me with a tired scowl. "I don't know, it just seems like this is a lot. How much longer do we have to do this? 5 more nights, I said, my brain having focused on that fact for a few days now. After Christmas, we'll be shed of them. And if this happens next year? He asked. I paled. I hadn't thought of that. What if this was just the new normal? What if every year for 2 weeks I had to fight or run from these vengeful lads? No, I told myself. No, it couldn't be. Things would be different next year. This couldn't go on. It just couldn't. I'm gonna go get some sleep, Davin said, realizing the silence had gone on a little too long. You should get some sleep too. You look like you're going crazy. Instead of sleeping, I just lay in bed and let the thoughts roll through my head like a horde of beetles with dung. The doors still slammed periodically. The cabinets joined in every now and again. And as my eyes got heavy, my mind kept wandering over the events of the past few days. The lads were the easiest ones to blame for this, but was it possible that they were just a scapegoat? I'd been thinking over what Davin had said, about how the farmhand said that he wasn't of the land, and I wondered if the Yule lads were just a means to an end. What if this was all some elaborate trick to be rid of the foreigners? Maybe it had never occurred to them that I wasn't of the land either until now. My voice had a hint of an English accent, but most of them spoke English, so it never bothered them. Had the arrival of my younger brother made them realize I wasn't a native to the area? Why should that matter anyway? Most of them could trace their roots back to other places. No, this had to be something else. As I lay in bed, however, it became harder and harder to think clearly. The longer I thought about it, the more I realized that I had to be sure. I think that might have been the first time I contemplated a new plan. A plan that would prove even more devastating than the last. The next thing I knew, the sun was setting, and I was aware that I'd been laying in silence for most of the afternoon. This made me apprehensive. Davin was asleep, the feisty Tom curled up on his chest as he too breathed lightly. But I wasn't about to get tricked. What was going to happen now? Were they going to ambush us? Would my door suddenly pop open and all 8 tonight, Yule lads come screaming in to finish the job? Why would Scrimgeour's brothers come to my house anyway? I had no Skyr for him. I had seen the last of it stolen days ago. Why would any of them bother to come back, for that matter? I still remembered the legend. I was still operating under the assumption that they were playing by the rules. My eyes had just started to get heavy when something new woke me up. My eyes popped open like a cartoon character, and I made a disgusted sound as I wrapped my fingers around my nose. The smell was undescribable. It smelled like curdled milk, like spoiled cheese, like unwashed flesh that's been soaking in curds. I heard heavy footsteps in the hall, followed by a trumpetous breaking of wind as the owner rambled through my house. The flatulence was followed by another, the owner groaning as a new smell joined the throng. It smelled like an overripe outhouse, that sickeningly sweet smell of lactose gas. I tried to get up, reaching for the nail bat as I came, but the smell made my head swim, and I sat down hard on the bed again. I covered my mouth with my free hand, the vomit hot and ready as it tried to make its way up my throat. Davin came awake suddenly, gagging wetly as he covered his face with his hands. The viscous substance slipped through his fingers, pattering onto the bedspread as his body jerked and bucked. He threw up all down his front, his heaving becoming dry as he pushed everything out of himself, and he covered his nose with his hand as he tried to block out the smell. Grendel's reaction was even worse. The cat was writhing on the coverlet, trying to cover its nose with its paws. Grendel threw up too, a noxious mess sputtering from his nose and mouth, and he stumbled off the bed as he fell to the floor. He wobbled, looking like he might be drunk. "What is that smell?" Davin asked pitifully, doubling over as he dry heaved. I don't know, I bellowed, staggering up and reaching for the door. I felt like I might throw up too, and the food I'd eaten for dinner churned in my stomach like an angry sea. I'd smelled all kinds of animal waste. been around dead things, and even had to empty and clean out an old latrine once, so that the toilets had somewhere to drain. But nothing was like this reek. I twisted the handle, but the door wouldn't open. I wrenched on the handle, but the door was held by something. Was this Erutious? Some kind of reverse of his power? I don't know, and I didn't care. I just wanted to be free of that smell. There were no windows in my room, all the windows being mostly in the front of the house, and the door remained our only point of egress. I kept pulling, retching, listening to Davin heave as he staggered out of bed. I heard Grendel hiss and leap away, his own piteous mews coming as he dug his head under the bed. We ended up making masks out of cloth, but it did little to blunt the smell. When dawn broke, the door finally creaked open noisily. The smell lingered on, though, filling the house with a nauseating aroma of rotten eggs and bad cheese. It seemed the Yule lads had decided that chemical warfare was next on the agenda. It was, in that very moment, my face covered with a bandana, as I began unsecuring every hole in my home, that the plan came back to me. If the Yule lads had decided to take it up a notch, then so could I. Tonight, we'd see who got who. Tonight, we'd see just how far these lads were willing to take it. Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining me for tonight's story, and I hope you're enjoying the continued tales of the Yule lads. Tonight's Yule lad is Skirgomor, or Skirgobbler. He eats up Icelandic yogurt and sometimes cheese as well. There's some tongue-in-cheek humor about him being a little bit flatulent, so I figured I'd kind of lean into it. I mean, eating all that dairy, it has to go somewhere, I suppose. He's another one of those lads that seems to come in to take something specific. In my mind's eye, he's kind of a large and gassy fellow, so I figured he'd be the best one for Phase 2 of the lad's plans, which seems to be a bit of chemical warfare. If you've been enjoying the stories and think you might like a little more Christmas horror, might I suggest you come and visit my Christmas playlist. I've left a link below. Tonight's recommendation is Chirps from the Chimney, which is part of my very popular Appalachian Grandpa series. It talks about a time where Grandpa maybe didn't listen so well to folklore and paid the price for it. The Appalachians have a custom about not killing crickets that you find on your fireplace because they're supposed to be good luck. But, as anyone who's ever had a cricket trapped in their house can attest, they can also be a nuisance. Whether you're putting up the tree, putting up decorations, or just rolling a body out to the curb, the Christmas playlist is a perfect background for anything you might be doing this holiday season. If you've got a picky horror reader on your holiday list, might I suggest Fall Frights and Autumn Chills. You can find a link below and get your own copy from Amazon, though if you'd like a signed one, get with me and I'm sure we can work something out. In this season of giving, if you think you might like to give to the channel, might I suggest Patreon. For just $5 a month, you can join our Spooky Skeleton Army and have your name read out at the end of every TikTok and every YouTube video that I make. Patrons also get their spooky a little bit early, getting their stories at about 7 o'clock in the morning. So, if you like to hear your spooky on the way to work every morning, I suggest you come on down and see what we've got in store. Speaking of my wonderful patrons, let's go ahead and thank them. Thanks to Janet for being our Spooky Skeleton tier contributor, and thanks to Winter, Xaronan, Emily Coltsfoot, Martha, Marianne Schuler, Jennifer Damron, and Tyler Parker for being our Ghostly Reader tier contributors. Thanks, everyone. We just couldn't do the show without you.